lost their Confluence database about 6 months ago and how they restored it. Hello guys. How about we first tell you who we are? Now the clicker doesn't seem to click, but I'm Aleksey Fedorov. I've been doing conferences for the past 12 years, and currently I'm doing production. I am Vladimir Krasilshchik. I am a pragmatic Java developer from St. Petersburg. I've been doing Java for many years, and now I'm doing backend as well for JUG Ru Group. Okay, who's got Jira? Let's start with simple questions. Okay, who's got Jira on premise? Now raise your hand if you don't know which Jira you're running. Raise your hand if you don't have Jira. Okay, what do you have? Nothing. Oh, the Excel file? Is that what you mean? Yes, sometimes I'm thinking it would have been better had we had nothing. No, this is much better. Good, good. So guys, that's the plan. First, we are going to tell you about the incident we had about 6 months ago, and after that, Vladimir is going to tell you how we, restored everything, or rather he did it. And in the end, if we have time, and I don't think we will, because we got a lengthy presentation, we should be able to field some questions of yours. So how about I get started? Sure, get rolling. So we've been running conferences for about 12 years. We're effectively a small company, but, at some point in time, we got ourselves Jira so that, we could do better task tracking. I think it happened about 10 years ago when the team was still very small, about 5 people only. And then we developed, or rather we installed Confluence as a knowledge database. We're much bigger now. We're like 70 people strong. We've got our own development team. So, we're... Have you ever attended any events of ours? Oh, right, some people have, good. So we need our own information system, and, we are effectively incident-driven, meaning that, until we are struck or hit or cracked, we don't really take security seriously. And since Jira and Confluence have been around for a very long time, well, naturally, they were exposed to the public internet. That makes a lot of sense, right? Back then, we didn't have clouds, we didn't have VPN. So, we just installed Jira and Confluence, we used public URLs, and that was it. And over these past 10 years, we have amassed over 160,000 tasks on Jira, because, the whole company is using it, not surprising, and several thousand pages on Confluence. Now, the important thing is that we are running an on-premise solution.
У нас серверная версия такая самая простая, инстанс один машина, Java процесс.
We've got.
Atlassian начал серверные версии.
I'm sorry. Atlassian started taking server versions out of support, so to speak. So initially they had a 3-year plan, and the first thing they stopped doing was major updates, and they discontinued minor updates, and recently they stopped doing even security updates. Now, the two alternatives offered by Atlassian were like this. Is that, well, you got to go to DC, but for us, that would be pretty expensive, because you got to have like a minimum number of users, like 500, and the total team we have is 80, so we had a license for 100, so that would mean for us at least quintupling of the expenses. Well, cloud installation was another option they suggested. However, foreign services in Russia, due to well-known reasons, are not very popular, let me put it mildly. So, we decided we would stick to the old versions of Jira and Confluence, and our license was expected to expire in April 2023. That, however, was an endless and eternal license, which means that, by the time your license expires, you have some version, and you stay with it forever, which means, not losing any updates, you can still do read and write operations. It's just that you cannot update beyond, the time your license has expired. Unlike the cloud-based version, which goes to read-only mode only once you stop paying. So we had like 15 plugins back then, maybe even 20 plugins, because we also have Confluence, and they also had this perpetual license. So the story was pretty much the same with them as well. So our license expired in April, and we were running February versions of Jira and Confluence. And then on the 6th of November 2023, somebody wrote in the incident chat, anybody has incident chat? You don't? How do you operate? So, in our incident chat, whenever we notice some shit, we kind of raise an alarm there.
Заходят люди в Confluence, вид вот такой, типа системная ошибка, туда-сюда. Ничего не понятно.
So, it looks like we have a system error, but it was not entirely clear. So, we woke up the person who was responsible for that, and initially he couldn't understand what was happening, and then he entered the user database, and he realized that everything there is empty. Like, there are tables there, but they're completely empty. The whole database is empty. So we accessed the access log, and we found lots of very interesting things, like several thousand lines that look like this. I'm just showing you a short excerpt here. So naturally, we wanted to... Oh, no, I'm sorry. These commands were about, starting some JVMs inside it. So it was clear that we got attacked and we got hacked. So apparently some relatively new vulnerability was exploited. So the attacker installed some scripts, and the scripts started, running. And whatever could be done with user rights, they did, including deleting the database. And, our analysis shows that it was not really a targeted attack. Apparently, they were just, going after vulnerable Confluence all over the network. So interestingly, they had a CNC in South America. So it was either another bot or the perp himself who was sending commands from there.
В тот момент было некоторое количество CVE-шек плюс-минус вышло.
So back then, there were some recent CVEs, and we had a younger version than the ones mentioned here. So we had 7.19.6 or something like this. Now, I'm not saying that it was exactly this CVE that got exploited for the hack, but this is what we're betting on, really. So next we asked ourselves if our data got stolen. So the outbound traffic seemed to be pretty small, like measuring kilobytes. So we're thinking, okay, maybe obviously our Confluence database is much bigger. Apparently nothing got stolen. So we didn't store passwords there. We didn't store anything confidential, really. So we thought, well, even if the database got stolen, not to worry, at least not to worry much. So naturally, the first thing we did was to put Jira, Confluence, and several other services behind VPN, put them behind VPN. Put them in the internal contours so that it's no longer exposed to the public internet. A bit later, we did something pretty interesting. We identified all our public URLs, publicly accessible, so to speak. So we, told ourselves, we got to manage all of them. And so we've pretty much completed these efforts. So we set up some routing rules, or the URLs that need to be exposed to the internet. And some services we just discontinued because we couldn't find the owners, and we're not entirely sure why we would have them in the first place. So naturally, the database got hacked, and naturally we have two backups. One is sitting in the server rack in the office, and the other one in Amazon. AWS S3. So we went to the disk rack, and it turned out that it was gone. Because, it ran out of space 6 months ago, and as we're trying to choose what to keep there and what to delete, we made some bad decisions, and because of that, our database would no longer back up there. Well, then we decided, okay, no problem, we should have it all in Amazon. And then it turned out that a key in a bucket on Amazon got stale, so for several months, or maybe a whole year, nothing was being copied to AWS. AWS does have some backups of ours, but they're really, really outdated. So we realized we didn't have any backups at all. Now, Valera asked me very nicely not to use four-letter words during my presentation. That's why I had to cut the words out here. But if you are big fans of intellectual games, you must have gathered that we didn't have any other words but the four-letter ones. So we were lucky because we did have a backup. So, like I said, in February 2023, we were migrating our Confluence to Postgres from MySQL. So, on that day, we did some backups. So, in one of those machines, we were able to find this backup. So, that was better. It's not that bad. It's only several months old. So we felt a bit bad. And then Oksana, a colleague of ours, said, you know what? I don't know about you guys. I'm getting notifications in my mail of the stuff related to Confluence. And, we kept asking her, Oksana, why would you litter your email with this stuff? And she said, you know what? I really like seeing what other people are doing, so she got notifications of all things happening on Confluence. So we found some like 15,000 letters in her mailbox. Whenever pages got updated on Confluence, she got updates. So she saved us, obviously. We're all engineers, so naturally, we came up with the idea of asking all the colleagues for their updates. And then transform, this heap of letters. I was expecting you guys to start laughing out loud here because we were restoring Confluence from mailboxes. But that's what we were doing.
Ну и у нас было важное, значит, мы, собственно, таким образом восстановили старый бэкап.
So this is how we restored from the old backup. We started collecting the emails, and naturally, people need to continue working. And some pages got deleted, others got updated over this time. So we want the current processes to continue, but then we'll also want to merge what we will have been able to restore. So we asked our employees not to work too much in Confluence, and we asked them to give us like 2 weeks to very quickly restore data over this, over this time. Yeah, we really wanted to give a yell here. Let's yell together, shall we? To the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Коллеги все собирают свои письма аккуратненько в почтовых клиентах.
So you understand the layout, right? People collect all their emails. They send them to me. I identify the diffs, the differences. I collect it all, and I want to put it back into Confluence. Ingenious, isn't it?
В основном у нас Mac, имейловский клиент очень плохо.
So we're mostly using Macs, and the email clients are really lousy at finding letters. And there is also a limit to how many letters you can export to the drive. The client would say, no, I cannot do that. Particularly if you're Oksana, you have 15,000 letters. So you can use Google UI. I mean, it's good for date filtration, for example. However, the problem with it is that it exports page by page, and the default setting is that you'll have like 50 letters per page. Well, you can customize it a bit. You can say, I want to have like 100 letters or mails per page. So if you have like 10, if you have 1,000 messages, it's only 10 pages. Well, that's manageable. So, we've been playing with it, setting up the right filters, but if you have more than 1,000, that's actually a different kind of problem. Obviously, it will take you more time because you need to, find every page, identify, make all the settings. However, if in this single page you have letters with a total number of attachments more than 500, it simply won't work. And interestingly enough, you know what Google does? Google will remove the attachment, put it in Google Drive, and will simply keep a link to the Google Drive, which is not what we need. Now, Thunderbird was a saving grace for Oksana and people like her, those who had many messages. So Thunderbird can connect to the service, download everything, then you can set a filter for the stuff that we need, and then all the mails, all the messages, like this.
Ясно. Вот так лучше?
Is that better?
Хорошо. Значит,
Good.
и все эти письма, которые упали в ящик, просто без
So
ограничений.
all the letters that go into the mailbox can easily be exported. No constraints, no limitations.
Все это ко мне, значит, попало, и
So
оказалось,
I'm getting my hands on all this stuff.
что такое вот сам по себе div? То есть что там в отбивке?
Now, you do remember what diffs are, right?
Там цветом выделено,
A div file is effectively an HTML where, highlighted in color is the stuff that has changed. It is not really a full-fledged version of the page.
мне понадобится гораздо больше
So
времени.
in order for me to address it, I will need much more time. I will need some text analyzer that would take this incomplete text from HTML, would also compare it to, the page which is like 8 months old, and introduce the changes. So we couldn't do it in 2 weeks.
Это такая,
So we developed what we called a mega diff. So it's like a comic book
друг за другом по
where
времени их появления.
I put all the diff files
Я хочу запихать
in a
обратно
chain,
в
and then I want to try to put this attachment back into Confluence as an attachment to the page. Next, I want to summon people who contributed to the page,
может быть, вот этот
ask them, like, this is the attachment, the mega diff attachment. It should help you restore this page manually.
Я Java-программист, прагматичный, пишу
So as a Java programmer, I'm a very pragmatic guy. I develop a very simple Java app, no Kubernetes, no nothing really.
взять
And it consists of some very simple stages. It takes all the emails I got,
дальше.
take attachments out of it, put them in a folder. From the attachment folder, take all the diffs and put them in a single mega diff. Then from the folder with mega diffs, it should sort of put them into Confluence through the API
Окей.
to apparently the corresponding files.
Много всяких дубликатов нам присылали.
Now, the first problem was that, we got lots and lots of identical pages, well, because people had identical emails. So I had to filter them out, and choosing the right diff key certainly saved my day. I was also using here as a key the timestamp of the server.
Содержательных сообщений.
I was also getting all sorts of messages that didn't matter much, really, like, a task has been suspended, or this is a recommendation that you gotta follow. So that was trash, which we had to filter out.
Выкидывая мусор, убирая дубликаты, собрать.
So as we removed the doubles, the duplicates, and we removed the crap, we were able to produce diffs and mega diffs.
Очень простой.
And the last stage,
API, можно через него запихать.
since Confluence has got an API, we can put the mega diff back into Confluence. Now, I'm saying it's a REST API, but in fact it isn't,
Метод пост, он метод контента
because
работает из
the content method here
attachment'ами, в общем,
will work with pages and attachments, so it's not really REST, but whatever.
очень неожиданно.
Next, we discover the following obstacle.
Да,
Since I didn't want to create too many entities, I wanted to, stick to the case rule. I preferred not to create pages because, well, we have a backup dating back 8 months, so some pages are certainly there. So,
окей, я создаю эту
if a page exists, I want my megadiff to be attached to it.
Значит,
If there is no page, well, then I create one for sure.
числовому айдишнику,
Now, my plan
API Confluence,
was to use the ID of the page to double-check over the API if Confluence has it.
URL к страницам
But it turned out
по-разному в зависимости от того,
that Confluence creates URLs differently depending on the name you give the page. So if you give it a Cyrillic name, it will be a numeric ID. But if the name is in English, Confluence will create a URL
через плюсик английские слова. И ты уже не
which is pretty much English words connected with a plus sign,
поэтапный поиск.
which made my life much more difficult. I had to first go looking for a page that has a specific name or a similar name in the given space.
Пытаться найти там. И это не точный поиск, это примерный поиск. Но
And naturally, it's a kind of a fuzzy search, but as I've been combining two ways of finding pages, I was able to, locate most of the pages.
вскрылась
Now, as the attachment was being added, it became clear that the regular HTTP client cannot really contribute this attachment with some special requests. I've highlighted it in the text here that the name of the parameter with the file path must be called a file. The JDK HTTP client simply was not prepared for that. So we had to use an Apache HTTP client. And at the bottom of the slide, you can see the code that we used in order to make it all happen. Now, after I put the attachment into Confluence, it turned out that Confluence totally distorts the files with Russian names, replacing Cyrillic with Unicode. And now I decided that before, I decided to replace all the Russian names with the transcribed Russian names. So there is actually a very simple utility for that. So this is how all attachments inside Confluence work called. So they are all in English letters and they're still human readable. So Lyosha said that we installed a VPN, and this VPN had a rate limit built into it. So when I started working with Confluence, VPN would often tell me, go screw yourself. Actually, it did tell me, go away. So I had to bring some additional mechanisms into the utility to bypass that. Next, it turned out that Confluence was limited in terms of the size of the attachment you can append to it, and we did have some relatively large attachments like 600 megabytes. So I wouldn't automate anything, simply put them aside, then I zipped them, and in smaller bytes or, in smaller chunks of 20 megabytes each, I would upload them. All in all, we got over 40,000 diffs from 80 people working for the company, right? Half of them obviously turned out to be duplicates, and 10% of the remaining proved to be noise. So based on all that, we were able to create 2,100 megadiffs, 1,500 new pages were created, and nearly 600 pages had or were amended or had attachments uploaded to them. Now, this is what it looks like. In every page in Confluence, there is a root page now called Restored Page History. And appended to it are all the pages that were missing from the backup, the things that, were created from scratch. And the names here are shown so that you can see that, they were created automatically with the tool that we wrote. Inside the page, you'll also see these comments. So I would identify the contributors, I would tag them, asking them to, come back and help us restore the page using the attachments provided. Now, where we failed? Well, A, we failed to completely automate the whole restoration process. Also, we failed to restore the original page IDs for the reasons I've already explained. Because of that, some links on Jira and other sources proved to be faulty. The hierarchical structure of pages we could not restore either, for the reasons I've already described. Some pages were not able to restore at all. So, for example, if you were not getting notifications, we were not getting diffs from you. Now, the worst thing is that we lost pictures and images. And here I ask Lyosha to come back so that we can yell together and we can summarize the presentation. So what have we learned, Lyosha? We have learned that supercritical infrastructure needs to be hidden behind a VPN. We've also learned that on a team, you absolutely need to have your Oksana, who will never agree to clean her mailbox and will collect all those diff files. So take great care of your Oksanas. Moreover, we understand how important it is not just to have several backup solutions somewhere, but also make sure they are up and running. And, if they stop working, for the backup function, somebody should be notified of that automatically. Yeah, and automatic backup recovery should be a great thing to have, right? Now, we had a great team. I think we've just shared with you a pretty funny, not to say crazy way of restoring Confluence from letters. Now, this is something that can happen in good teams only. At least that's what I think. So please vote for our presentation if you liked it, and use the QR code to ask questions. And I think we can yell together again, shall we? Yeah!
Спасибо большое.
Да.
Thank you so much.
Слабоумие, отвага — наше все.
Now, guys, you can see that stupidity and courage win the day or carry the day. Yeah, thank you so much. I don't see any questions though. Please remember that here, if you want to ask questions, please snap the QR code in the main screen. And while people, still doing it, let me ask the following question. How do you go about, learning ahead of time that you're running out of space, or that your keys are getting stale? Well, we're using Prometheus, Grafana, and Telegram alerts. So whatever Prometheus can get its hands on, such as, drive space, it's doing it. Oh, that's good. I don't see any questions. Great. Thank you so much.